Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Stylosa and welcome back to Pro OverAnalyzed. Today, Josh is going to take you through the biggest upset in Overwatch League history so far. We are going to watch the Boston Uprising versus the London Spitfire. There is some very notable plays in this game. There is a Boston on the Zen, possibly one of the best Zens there is in the world, definitely up there with Jonat. But we've also got Dreamcasper and Striker literally playing out of their mind for Boston. This is an insane game, guys. Check this out. Over to you, Josh.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Pro OverAnalyzed. Today we're going to be looking at the Boston Tea Party, the biggest upset of the previous week, of week number 3. And that was Boston Uprising taking on London Spitfire in a very, very close series between both teams. And it was a real treat of a series. If you haven't gone and watched this, of course, go and watch it without me waffling over it. I, of course, am Josh, one amongst many as no doubt introduced, and I'll be looking forward to talking through this with you. Now, just to set the scene, the series is tied 2-2 at the moment. They are going to the final map of Lijiang Tower, where they solve all the tiebreaks, and importantly, Boston Uprising actually won the previous control map, and historically, London Spitfire have tended to struggle most on those control maps. So it's all a little bit dicey at the moment for the Spitfire. Now, there's a number of different factors in the series as a whole, but let's get started with this map. Crucially, the big DPS duo of Prophet and Birdring has come out for London Spitfire for this one. They want that little bit of dive power and perhaps that little bit of star power that those two can bring to such a tight series. Now, one thing that's been interesting throughout these series and is going to play a role is that London Spitfire tend not to adopt the Lucio. Meanwhile, Boston Uprising are more than happy to play it. Also, crucially, Boston Uprising have Dreamcasper, who seems to be able to play just about everything to at least a proficient degree, and is certainly no slouch on the Farah. So they've been running a lot of the pharmacy on this style of map as well. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is going to be the differences caused by that pharmacy, how London Spitfire react to it, and also how Boston Uprising posture their plays and execute their plays against London Spitfire to have a really, really effective playstyle and some very efficient, crisp and clean dives that London Spitfire can really struggle dealing with. So just as the gates open, I'm going to pause it right now, just so we can have a look at the team comps, just to highlight those differences again. Don't be fooled by Nuss, don't be fooled, this is just a Lucio, just to speed boost them nice and quickly out of the doorway, just to get that little bit of extra speed. Meanwhile, Neko actually will be staying on this Lucio, in Boston Uprising not opting to run the Zenyatta. Now what's interesting about Boston Uprising's comp is that they actually have a very, very difficult to dive comp. The only thing that you can really get on is the Lucio. Maybe you can get onto the Winston as well, which is what London Spitfire usually have been doing this entire series long, is they've generally been diving onto Gamsu, basically using some players as bait and then counter diving and engaging as hard as they can on the Winston using Fury, Gesture and Prophet, or well, the Tracer that they are playing at the time. Of course, the other big difference you will notice is one team has the Farah, one team does not. So let's see how this plays out. Now, there are a lot of different approaches you can actually take going into first point and going into the sort of the first attack here, and we're going to actually see two different positions coming forward. Part of this is enabled by the Lucio. I know I'm going to be pausing this one or two more times, don't worry, I'm going to let it roll for most of the time, but it's kind of important to highlight this. The Lucio lets Gamsu take a very strong position. Normally, when you're playing the Winston, sort of in the Winston duel, it's very... like, there's two different ways of doing it. The Winston can either just jump straight here and sort of take control of this pillar in the middle, or he can just jump and go sort of for the long haul and go right into the enemy team's backline. But with that Lucio, and with London Spitfire not running the Lucio, Gamsu can actually just run straight into position here and sets himself up for an easy, very, very targeted, very sort of precise little jump that lets him get right onto the backline of Spitfire. Also, what's interesting is Spitfire are running the Widowmaker just to spot out. They know that the Farah is coming, they suspected that it's coming, so they want to have something to deal with that. Now, what this means is that Boston Uprising have a very mobile comp. Dreamcasper does a good job of using this sort of the pillar in the middle, the tower in the middle, not the actual Lijiang Tower, but the mini Lijiang Tower, just to sort of block line of sight so you can actually get a good angle here going forward. So let's roll the clip. Okay, so you're going to see Gamsu go in, like I said, you're going to see the tanks dive in, and crucially you're going to see Neko, like I'm going to pause it again, just to sort of highlight, this first play is very, very integral to how the rest of this map goes, so we really want to break it down in detail, guys. So Neko drops really, really low, but crucially Neko hasn't actually used Amp It Up since he left spawn. I imagine he used it on spawn, and then it's just let it regenerate. So he has that heal available to him, that very, very powerful heal resource, and that's going to enable him to survive. Meanwhile, you're going to see everyone from Boston Uprising actually just go on the hard engage, because they know that Boston and Birdring in particular are going to be set up in sort of this area here, and they're going to be relatively immobile and somewhat easier to deal with. So then, let's roll the rest of this out and see how it goes. So you can see straight away they spot the sort of more immobile targets going over the bridge. They go in deep for them, and sort of you have this very, very aggressive dive on these very immobile heroes, picking up a number of kills. Now, London Spitfire did get a couple of kills of their own, but crucially the supports on London Spitfire will end up going down here. Nuss forced to sort of stay back, try and res Badosian, which makes him immobile, which means Striker can go and get a lot of damage on him, clean up the Mercy, and then clean up the Zenyatta again with Dreamcasper. That means that there's no more healing now for London Spitfire, and it's just a couple of big tanks left, so Striker can do a lot of damage. And if you take a look at the ultimate charges at the moment, Striker is extremely high up compared to everybody else. Dreamcasper's been doing okay, and Birdring is just sort of completely out of it. He had no luck on the Widowmaker, didn't manage to get any shots in, and so got nothing to swap now to the McCree, just to have a little bit of extra power against the Tracer, while also being able to still deal with the Farah in the sky. So you can see now they're setting up for the second engagement, but there's already a disadvantage, and the issue that McCree suffers, of course, is that sure, he can deal well in these one-on-ones, but when you have multiple targets all diving him all at once, he can really struggle dealing with it. One of the common questions I generally get asked is, why don't people play McCree to sort of counter dive comps, especially when dive comp was sort of the force du jour? And now you can sort of see why very clearly, is that when that McCree gets focused, it will start to go very, very badly for him. Now, reses do come through. Nuss managing to get his Valkyrie off, does manage to pick him back up and get him back into the fight, which is kind of crucial because his damage output is massive. Kellogg's also managing to get the Valkyrie off and start healing people up. But more importantly, Badosian has been contributing massively. So the thing with Badosian and with Zenyatta's in general is that Zenyatta can contribute a lot more in fights than Lucio can usually, especially if the fight sort of starts fragmenting and breaking up. Transcendence is a better ultimate than Sound Barrier as well, so Badosian's just been constantly doing damage, building up his ultimate, gets that Transcendence out first, and that keeps London Spitfire in the fight. Now, London Spitfire also have a relatively mobile team with the Tracer, the Winston, and the Diva, so they can get back, respawns come back in, and they can actually manage to get a lot of work done. Prophet starts cleaning up, getting a lot of kills, and it all starts going very well for them. And now you're going to see London Spitfire taking a very aggressive posturing. You're going to see Boston Uprising want to change one or two things. Now, I want to highlight one thing in particular, which is Badosian. Badosian at the moment is on 65% ultimate charge. And we're going to see him get to 100% in pretty much record time. One dink there, 75%, and then the next one, boom, 95%, and he's going to be ready to go with the Transcendence for next fight. This is crucial because it means he's generating this ultimate charge far, far faster than his rival. Neko has just swapped off the Lucio now onto the Zenyatta of his own, and it also means that they can be a little bit more liberal with these trances. So this engagement goes in, Badosian just uses the Transcendence, just says, hey, yeah, we can just use this, be safe, be completely safe, hold off this attack, no problem, clean it up. Instantly, Boston Uprising disengage. Most of them just jump off. They don't want to feed ultimate charge to the enemy team, they don't want to take any unnecessary damage, so they're just going to drop off and respawn. London Spitfire partially do this as well because they know that Nuss is going to be available in the next fight, has ultimate ready to go, and so they have Valkyrie as well to save off the next engagement. So they're feeling pretty okay at the moment. Otherwise, you'll just see Prophet sharking around looking for targets. Badosian, again, gets that quick pick, already on 30% charge, only 20% behind his rival Neko, and he's going to keep on this sort of habit of just building up a lot of this ultimate charge. Kellogg's does manage to get the res off, though, so they can still engage on this push. So Boston Uprising not held off for too long here. Now, this sort of broke my heart a little bit. Just, Prophet, please, you can do this, Prophet. I'm sure you can do this, Prophet. But Gesture crucially finds Kellogg's. Kellogg's had a really rough time of it in this series. He died quite a lot, and if I had to sort of highlight any weakness on Boston Uprising, I would say it is in their support lineup. So Kellogg's just sort of pulled around in the middle of the map, has nowhere really good to dash to, has nowhere really safe to go, and London Spitfire just see, hey, yeah, there's a free Mercy floating around, we'll just kill that. They also had to use Valkyrie, though, so there is a slight disadvantage here, where now there's a huge opening for Boston Uprising. They have a lot of powerful ults coming online, and so London Spitfire managed to actually make the best of it. You have Prophet taking aggressive positioning, Gesture playing aggressively as well, where they know that the enemy has to sort of engage super hard just to get onto the point. So Gesture knows he has Primal Rage, Prophet positions aggressively, and can go in onto the backline with relative safety. Now, a crucial thing happens here. Notice that Badosian is on 95% ultimate charge. Transcendence will really swing fights like this, and boom, Gamsu with the save just dunks him into the cart pond. It's real bad. It's real bad to lose that at that moment, because now your big win play of like, hey, yeah, they engage us, we'll have Transcendence built up, no problem, is suddenly gone. Boston Uprising take control of the point. London Spitfire seed it very quickly. They know that they're going to have Trans available for next fight, but Kellogg's will also have that crucial Valkyrie. Okay then, setting up for this last fight. I'm going to just take a moment just to like really set the scene for you guys, because again, this is a relatively short map, so we can take a little bit longer in getting some of the nitty-gritty details. Crucially, Kellogg's has this Valkyrie available to him. Meanwhile, Badosian does, of course, have that Transcendence available to him. This is the lifeline of London Spitfire. This is their win condition. If they get a good Transcendence and then manage to get a good engage off the back of it, they can probably clean this up and win this and take this map. If they get a bad Transcendence or are forced to use it early, that's a problem. Boston Uprising, who I imagine naturally have been tracking the ultimates of the enemy team, know that they have sort of this scenario available to them. They know that the Transcendence is going to be coming up and going to be available, so they're going to have to try and do something to deal with it. Boston Uprising making the intelligent decision: if we find Zenyatta, dive him, kill him, no problem. So tanks leading the charge going forward. You can see Striker there on your right as well, just biding his time, trying to locate where Bdosin is. Very defensive posturing from Boston Uprising. No one wants to get picked, no one wants to take unnecessary damage, just staying behind the point, letting the enemy team engage, and then spotting out Bdosin straight away, getting that Transcendence out of him very, very early. Prophet managing to get a fast kill on Gamsu, but of course it doesn't matter because Valkyrie is a very, very good ultimate. Recently been nerfed, thank God. And hey, Kellex managing to bring everyone back in because Valkyrie is a little bit stronger, shall we say, than Transcendence. Dreamcasper even throwing himself off the map by accident. Looks like, I don't know how Birdring gets credit for that in the kill feed, where it just looks like he just sort of took a tumble. But yeah, Valkyrie managing to bring people back, keep people alive in this extended fight as well. It means that Boston Uprising have a very strong presence on the point now and can just keep on fighting, keep on trying to clean up. Nuss also died a little bit early in that fight, just before he could get his Valkyrie available, and so has to use it when coming back from spawn now. But again, it's already a little bit too late. Like, the forces on the point have already sort of struggled a little bit. Also, crucially, Gesture doesn't get the same sort of hero knockoff that Gamsu got earlier, so it means that Neko can also get back onto the point. I don't think that was too high impact. I think, honestly, the fight was already lost by then, but just having Neko there was the nail in the coffin, so to speak, with the Transcendence making it completely safe. Now, one of the interesting things, one of sort of the big debates that I've seen happen a couple of times in the pro community is the best of 3 format for King of the Hill. One of the issues with it is, say, the next 2 maps play out very, very differently. So you have Control Center, which is sort of very tight indoors, it's very narrow. Stuff like Zarya, Reinhardt can be played on that map, for example. Meanwhile, you have the more open night market where the pharmacy can still work, where you can get a lot of long sight lines, you can play more poke style, and so a lot of difference can happen and end up happening based on what map they get. It turns out they actually get night market, as you can see on your screens right now as the gates open. Again, we're going to take a look at very brief look at the hero pools and sort of what people are doing. London Spitfire opting for a pure dive, just going with the Tracer Genji. Meanwhile, Boston Uprising going back to the pharmacy plane. You're going to see both teams deploy in very, very different ways. So with the pharmacy, one thing you want to do, of course, is get control of the point and sort of force enemies to try and play into you, play around sort of the edges that you can knock people off with the Lucio. That's also going to be very powerful. And you got to just be able to spam them with rockets as they try and come in. Meanwhile, London Spitfire sort of got this round the houses route around the back of the map, but crucially, Bdosin ends up in a really unfortunate position. Like, this is the enemy spawn. And I sort of, when I was watching this, when I was preparing to do this video, I was sort of keeping track of where Bdosin went, and he went all the way through that little C section sort of around the back, the sort of the corridor around the back, and sort of ended up in the middle of the map here. Once this happens, Boston Uprising, they're just like wolves. They just know and smell blood in the water, just to mix up my animal idioms and then go in hard on Bdosin, killing him off pretty much instantaneously. Again, that's a really, really big kill. Losing Zenyatta loses you so much value in the fight. That's a source of damage, a massive debuff, a source of healing that's pretty reliable as well. It's not good to lose your Zenyatta. It's a very, very high value kill. Of course, this is especially true when your Zenyatta is the only thing that can deal with the airborne threat of the Pharah. You did see Fury at the end there peel and go and try and deal with him to shut him down a little bit, but that frees up Gamsu to go and do whatever he likes, so it causes a number of problems. London Spitfire instantly changing one or two things up, realizing that Genji Tracer isn't going to work into pharmacy, so Birdring takes out the McCree. Now you're going to see them sort of go into this very, very defensive posture again, just making sure they're going indoors so they're not going to get rained down on by the Pharah. And crucially, while we're on board with Neko, the real action's happening on the front line. Gamsu takes a huge chunk of damage and does eventually go down. Bdosin again getting a huge chunk of ultimate charge. You almost said chunkumate charge, which isn't quite correct. Striker going to be flanking around looking for an angle. Boston Uprising know that they have Valkyrie in a second or two, so even as bad as this is going, Kellex gets his Valkyrie up and running. Striker gets an absolute beauty of a kill, and Kellex can start bringing people back onto the point. Nuss, however, is a little bit behind, can't bring back Bdosin in time. He does get his Valkyrie off right now, there it goes, and Bdosin doesn't actually manage to get res. He's respawned, so he's got to slowly make his way back, slowly float his way back. Striker, though, is having a hard time getting any kills, and this is the big thing that Boston Uprising seems to be struggling with at this point, is they have sound barrier, they have all these advantages, but then just not confirming these into kills. No one actually dies during this moment of weakness, really. Fury just gets demeched again, which isn't the biggest deal in the world, and now Bdosin is back. He can get that Transcendence off and keep his team alive a little bit longer. The kill finally comes in when Transcendence comes in anyway, and now London Spitfire are in control of the point. They've managed to sort of bring themselves back, come back in, and start cleaning up once again. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it all gets a little bit dicey. You can see that London Spitfire is just going to reposition themselves, try and get ready. Position again very defensively. You see Birdring just hanging around with these supports. He's going to want to take his time and try and deal with any shenanigans, trying to come in the back. You see Boston Uprising changing themselves up once more, going off the fire as they know that playing fire into this is not really going to work well. The sort of attacking into a hit scan, especially with damage amp, is always going to be very difficult. Dreamcasper trying to get an angle in, but this is a damage amp Birdring who's going to have a bit of a tough time. Dreamcasper and Birdring kind of cancelling each other out at this point. Meanwhile, again, the action seems to be happening on the front line. Gesture playing aggressively, using Primal Race to get something done, but is forced to sort of back away on very, very low hit points. Boston Uprising capitalise on this, hunt him down, pursue him as much as possible. They do manage to get Gamsu, and then Striker managing to return in kind. The D-Bomb goes off, puts everyone in a corner. That makes him so vulnerable to the dashes and makes him so vulnerable to Neko as well. It's just easiest shots of his career as he just lines them up and manages to flip the point back for the team. Beautiful job by the Diva Bomb and sort of Boston Uprising capitalizing on the forced reposition of the Diva Bomb to really make that take work for them. And now they're in a really strong position because they didn't actually have to use support ultimates during all of that. Now then, Dreamcasper has just died. And you might think, well, that's a huge opportunity. His corpse is right here, and as hexagrams is often want to say, the Mercy meta, it doesn't really matter when you die, it matters where you die. Here is actually a little bit too vulnerable. It's very difficult to sort of get Mercy out here in this position, because especially as London Spitfire have swapped to this dive role. But if you've been watching sort of the swaps as they happen, you'll notice something weird happening up here, as Prophet and Birdring had to kind of juggle these two heroes back and forth, and now have to leave spawn together. Prophet staying on point for a while to try and stall it, and so now he's finally got to play on his Genji. But Birdring sort of had to wait for Prophet to come back to spawn and then make this swap so that now they can just roll out together. No one is actually in position to capitalize on this kill, and that's actually a huge loss for them because, hey, the primary DPS is down. The tanks are going to use it to take some position, but they can't go in, for example, an aggressive dive on Neko or something, force out an early Transcendence and get a lot done. So then we're going to roll it out at the moment as Boston Uprising. Again, just playing defensively, playing passively, probably wondering, wow, where's the engage? And now the engage finally comes in. Now that London Spitfire have sort of got into position, they do manage to get Neko, but he doesn't use that ultimate because he knows, ladies and gentlemen, that Kellex has that Valkyrie available. Both of these Zenyatas do actually, so they both get res, they both get targeted down, res comes through both of them, and then they both get picked up. Now Fury's going to do something a little bit interesting here. He's going to drop the Diva Bomb, and I kind of want to call that one into question. It was during the Transcendence, he was still getting healed up. It was going to have a very difficult time finishing him off, and so he just drops the Diva Bomb in the doorway to maybe try and buy a little bit of space. It's great when your enemy is activating ultimates to use the Diva Bomb to just make some space, sort of burn the clock down on those ultimates, but crucially his own team's activated them, so they've kind of already done that. They've already nullified them. Now the big thing with Diva is she has a real moment of weakness. You can see Fury here in the middle of the screen, and you can see Dreamcasper. Dreamcasper is about to sort of get gifted himself a free kill. If I just inch the footage forward a second, whoop. Right here, Fury's now remeching. Dreamcasper can see him. It's clear as day. He just has to land a headshot basically with those shurikens and then dash through, and he's got to scoop himself up a nice juicy Diva. That Diva is crucial, ladies and gentlemen, in doing a lot of damage in these fights. When you have these big tanky targets fighting on the point, then she's going to be really, really useful. Dreamcasper then draws out the Dragon Blade. He knows there's no ultimates in the way, swinging the DPS advantage even further into the Boston Uprising's favor so that they can just keep on cleaning this up. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where it's do or die time. Prophet is trying his best, but it's just not enough. There's just not enough left on the point, not enough fight left in them, and so Boston Uprising draw first blood against the Koreans. And a very, very hard-fought win against London Spitfire. London Spitfire still did pretty well, ran some interesting rosters. It felt like they were sort of cycling, so London Spitfire until recently have been sort of playing the same rosters over and over and over again. In this series, they decided to play a couple of different players, try out a couple of different mixtures. Doesn't seem to have worked out for them, but we'll see how it keeps on going into the future. But it was a superb series to watch. It was such fun, so hyped to see both of these teams going at each other. Some very, very good Overwatch being played, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Otherwise, guys, thank you for watching to the end. I have been Josh, as one voice amongst many. It's been my treat to go over this very hard-fought Lijiang Tower map with you guys. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of next week. Otherwise, thank you for watching to the end. Toodles.